What do you do? You have to tighten your...
No, I go back to my regular tax bracket.
Sheriff, this doesn't seem that, oh, never mind.
Rolling his cash is getting ready to stop for you.
I'm gonna have to get a night job. Maybe 7-Eleven. Oh, Tools, there you go, yeah.
I'm sorry, I should have looked at that earlier.
Dry cleaner goes on, so I'll make up for it.
City Council meeting, September 18th, 2018, 6 p.m. You want me to hit it?
The council meeting of September 18th will come to order. Good evening. Would ask that all in attendance turn off or silence your electronic devices, and if you'd please stand to honor God and country. Father, we are so blessed to have men and women who work diligently for our safety and well-being, even when their jobs are difficult and often thankless. Help us remember to thank you for their sacrifices and service to our community. May we, each and every resident in Temple Terrace, touch heaven with prayers of gratitude whenever we see or personally encounter those who faithfully serve our city. We pray your special hedge of protection around Rescue 21 first responders Joe Cable and Casey Hanna, and en route to the storm area, Engineer Cruz and Firefighter Renner, and for each of the men and women standing in the gap to cover their duties as they serve those in the wake of the storm. Give all the strength that you provide so that as they serve, you are honored. As we embark on the work of your city this evening, may each have an attitude that is pleasing to you. Amen. We will now pledge the flag of our great nation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If there are any persons wishing to address council, forms are available in the back of the room and may be turned into the clerk to my right. This evening, a recognition of home rule. If Angela Christ, Director of the Institute of Government, will please come forward. Angela, good evening.
Hello, good evening. Mayor, council members, it's a pleasure to be here. For the record, Angela Christ. I actually wear two hats. I work at the University of South Florida as the director of the Florida Institute of Government, but I also get the pleasure of serving as the executive director for the Suncoast League of Cities. And the Suncoast League of Cities is actually a regional league of the Florida League of Cities. So tonight I'm here to represent both the Suncoast League of Cities and the Florida League of Cities. I'd like to tell you just a little bit about the Home Rule and Home Rule Hero Award, and then I have a special presentation. So just want to make a quick statement that the Suncoast League of Cities and the Florida League of Cities strongly supports the authority of our local governments to exercise their powers of governance and perform functions pertaining to the structural, functional, local, and personnel affairs at the requests of their citizens. Each year, the Florida League of Cities recognizes outstanding local elected officials across the state who have gone above and beyond advocating for home rule or local self-government. This year, the Suncoast League of Cities had 14 recipients, the most of any regional league in the state. And tonight, I am here to recognize and honor one of your council members for her help during the 2018 legislative session. Council Member Donohue, would you like to come forward? Wonderful. Just a few words from the Florida League of Cities. Council Member Donohue was very helpful during the session. She responded to many legislative alerts on the following issues: municipal elections, CRAs, and municipal travel restrictions. She also took the time to thank legislators for voting no on bills opposed by the League, which we know is very time-consuming. So, I'd like to read this to you. For being a champion in the defense and protection of municipal home rule, the Florida League of Cities presents the 2018 Home Rule Hero to Councilmember Sherry Donohue, City of Temple Terrace, and it's signed by the President of the Florida League of Cities and the Legislative Director of the Florida League of Cities. So on behalf of both of us, thank you so much for continuing your advocacy efforts. You're welcome.
Thank you, Ms. Christ. There are 2 vacancies on the library board due to the term expiration of Carol Dell and Cynthia Moeller. Both are eligible to serve another term. Carol Dell has indicated a desire to continue her service to the city. Ms. Dell, would you like to address council this evening on your application?
Sure. Carol Dell, 1309 North River Hills Drive. And I've really enjoyed being on the library board the last several terms. It's a wonderful, wonderful gem in our city. And I don't know if everybody realizes the programs that go on at the library. It's not your grandmother's library anymore. You don't go in there and have people shushing you, telling you to be quiet, find your book, there's the door, you can leave now. Fabulous, wonderful programs. And I love being a part of being on the board of the library. I want to say one thing. Last week, Susan, who has a children's library program, and I take my grandson to it almost every Wednesday, and I struck up a conversation with a family who was from Belarus, and they spoke very little English, but they were so excited to be at the library, to be listening to a story, to be cutting out pictures from a magazine, to be gluing, to be conversing with other people. And as they left, the mother said, I wish you had a program every day like this. We would come every day after school, not before school, but we will come every day after school. And that's what the library is about, and I'm so proud of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dell. Would ask for a motion to approve the appointment of Carol Dell to the library board for a term extending from September 18, 2018 to September 18, 2021. Is there a motion?
Move to reappoint Carol Dell to the library board.
We have a
Second.
motion. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, please signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay sign. Thank you. Motion carries, and thank you, Ms. Dell, for your ongoing service to our community. Council, if the minutes of the September 4th, 2018 City Council meeting are acceptable, would entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
Move to approve.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay sign. Minutes stand approved. Persons wishing to be heard on items not listed on the agenda or items on the consent agenda, a 3-minute time limit will be imposed on all comments from the public. Individual members of the public who are present in the audience may designate in writing a representative to speak on their behalf, not extending beyond a 10-minute period. As speakers come to the podium, please state your name and city of residence. During public comment on items that are not on the agenda, the city manager and the directors who are in attendance do make note of these items. During the city manager's report later in this evening's agenda, Mr. Stevenson may make comment on items that are brought up, and where further research is necessary, he or staff he assigns will reach back to our residents. We want to ensure residents that all of your comments are taken seriously and are followed up on. Our first speaker this evening, Ellen Snelling.
Good evening. I just wanted to talk a little bit about the Golf and Country Club, and first I would like to thank the city council members, the mayor, city manager, and city attorney for all their hard work in this past year on downtown redevelopment, improving the finances of the Golf and Country Club, passing a balanced budget, lowering our property tax millage rate, and I feel like the city is moving in a very promising and positive direction. I was concerned about a news story that I saw about the Golf and Country Club, and there was a group called the Sons of Confederate Veterans that held a banquet there. And I know some residents were very concerned about that and protesting it. But my question is, if I feel like Temple Terrace is a very diverse, accepting community. Shouldn't we be diverse and accepting of all forms of free speech? I feel like whether or not we agree with this group, shouldn't they be allowed to have a banquet at our country club? We all are very supportive of our golf and country club. We want them to be able to pay back their loan. And the business has, I felt like, improved so much over the past year, heading in such a great direction. So I feel like something like this can give like a negative cast over our city to make it seem like we're not diverse and accepting, but it's just kind of confusing to me because I believe in free speech, and I feel like anyone should be able to have a banquet or a party at our country club. And I'm not sure what kind of precedent it would set if we were to tell the country club, you can have this person or this group, but not others. But mostly I would like to thank the City Council for all their hard work in the past year in improving our city. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Snelling. Next, Colleen Clark.
Hi, I'm Dr. Colleen Clark. I live at 404 South River Hills. I've owned a home in Temple Terrace for 30 years. I'm one of the people that was really upset about hearing about this meeting at the country club. I know I don't understand all the ins and outs of who owns which land or what. I grew up in Texas and in Alabama. In Texas, I witnessed crosses being burned in front of the homes of black ministers and his family, his children. In Alabama, I saw anti-Semitism so intense that young people committed suicide because of the bullying of it. These thoughts, these hatreds, these actions are, in my opinion, an infection. It goes against everything I love about Temple Terrace. And I think it's important that everyone here know and understand that this is not a simple banquet. This is not freedom of speech. This is hate speech. There was discussion of lynchings and how they were understood and accepted by this group. And people that work there had to hear this. This is not acceptable, in my opinion, and I think it's important that people know this. And there's many of us that feel this way. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Clark. Linnell McAllister.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Commissioners, and, Councilman. I'm Renewal McAllister. I live in Temple Terrace. And I have a copy of a Christoph and Associates report here that I scanned through pretty quickly as I was starting to get up to speed on what I wanted to say with you tonight. There are some words in here that concerns me, and I did want to second what I think Ms. Nelly said earlier about the work that the city and the club management have been doing recently. But as a taxpayer, I'm concerned about some words in here: distressed, forbearance, rent in arrears, suspended bondholder payments. So I'm very concerned about all that. I did some quick math, and it appears that every man, woman, and child is subsidizing about $5 a month, $5 a year, if we were to add the $120,000 a year in the case of a negative cash flow distress situation. So, but it sounds to me like we're doing really well, that we've made a big turnaround, and so that we can go ahead and forgo cash money being offered by a group that is actually sponsored by a club member to defray basically the cost of 1 month's rent for the year. So it's so great that we're doing so well that we can turn that money away. Otherwise it might be construed to be irresponsible to not help our food and beverage money in a distressed situation. But I'm also a club member and have been for some time prior to the death of my late husband, Bart Siegel. And speaking as a club member, we're trying to attract members and revenue to the club. And it's very concerning to me that unsubstantiated gossip from employees would be allowed to surface about members who patronize the club. If I'm trying to sell something, I sure don't want to have my product be, the privacy of a private club to be tainted in that way. So some of us are working hard, trying to bring revenue into the club, and we see others sort of trying to destroy that. And I do hope for the good of our property owners and residents and taxpayers and shareholders and stakeholders of the club that we can get our priorities straight and look at member service to the club and keep focusing on that, and financial responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McAllister. David McAllister?
Good evening, councilmen, councilwomen, mayor. I'm David McAllister, and I'm a resident of Temple Terrace. And I'm here because I understand that there has been some issue that's been brought up which has received media coverage in that some persons or groups, organizations want the city council to somehow order the Temple Terrace Country Club to refuse service to a group that has patronized them for several years. And this is the Sons of Confederate Veterans, and specifically the Judah P. Benjamin Camp number 2210 of the SCV, of which I am the commander. I suppose this is because they think the city and the council will subsidize the Temple Terrace Country Club, so they have this opportunity. Well, first, as a taxpayer here, I hate to see the golf club and the city turning away business, especially when my taxes help pay this subsidy, and I understand the club could use the business. Second, as an American citizen, I'm offended that anyone would make it their business to try to stigmatize and demonize the Sons of Confederate Veterans, a national organization of some 35,000 members, which is a history and honor society made up of the descendants of Confederate veterans, whom the United States Congress has recognized as U.S. veterans and entitled to all the honors and recognitions of all veterans. It is non-discriminatory, it is diverse, and it has educational and charitable programs. And third, the last time I looked, the United States Constitution still had a First Amendment guaranteeing freedom of speech and freedom of assembly. So now I would propose to you that if you want to do anything as a council, how about the city hosting a debate, with the venue being the Temple Terrace Country Club, and we can have a debate about the appropriateness of people's interference with someone else's private business and forced compliance with a politically motivated social agenda. Think about that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. McAllister. Wayne Elliott Green.
Good evening, Your Honor, Mayor Jurado, illustrious City Council. My name is Wayne Green, and I've lived in the Temple Terrace area pretty much my entire life. I come to you all, City Council and Mrs. Mayor, to let you know that I stand in opposition. I come from a area of Plant City that my whole family has been in civil rights. There are high schools named after my uncle who raised me. My grandmother's house was put into the Historical Society for the Hillsborough County, and it was deemed through the federal government as one of the historical societies. This is through civil rights, through so many amendments, and so far that we've come through. Temple Terrace has been very good to me. I am a successful businessman. I retired 14 years ago. And you're talking about taxes? I pay a lot of taxes. And trust me, I think you all know it. I'm friends with the McAllisters, and at the time, I think I knew Lynn as Siegel, when she was Siegel. And we've had many of conversations about the Confederate flag. I have no problem with the Confederate flag. Coming from Plant City, I can assure you I've had a lot to deal with as it relates to race relations, civil rights, peace, love. We've contributed so much to the community. One of the problems I have is, from what I understand, I am also a member of the Temple Terrace Golf and Country Club. Don't play much golf, but I sure eat and drink a lot. So I put my part in. The question I have is that when the administrators for the club, the board of directors, I don't mind the Confederate Sons of the Confederates there, but when you have news and you've traumatized the entire staff, I get out of my car and walk to the building, and I'm having employees coming in tears, scared to death. The Confederate flag, I understand, has a lot of heritage and it has a lot of history. I don't know many positive things about it, because when I see the Confederate flag, I also see the cross burning. I also see everything that has been horrendous as it relates to that flag, from Charleston to Charlottesville to St. Louis. There's nothing good that I've seen, other than my friends that I know who support the flag, and they seem to be good people. And my 10 minutes, I guess, are up.
Thank you, Mr.
And I can go
McAllister.
on.
John Nash?
Thank you for the opportunity to address you. I come here recently. I've resided in Temple Terrace less than 3 years. I have a lovely house on River Hills Drive, and I love this place. And I joined this club, and I loved this club. And last year, when this occurred, I stood here at this podium, and I said no. And I burned my membership, and I walked away from the club. And the club came to me and said, "This will never happen again. Please, Mr. Nash, come back." And I came back, and it's happened again. And my resignation letter is already typed. Now, the Executive Council of the Temple Terrace Country Club is having a meeting as we speak. I am waiting to see what they come back with, and I have talked to them. They're aware of my feelings. I have had people that I know who were going to join who have walked away. I have had people who were members who have left. This is not the way to do things. And that's all I have to say. But I will not spend a dime to further a cause that is basically arrested development.
Thank you, Mr. Nash. Is there anyone else to address council in the open forum? Seeing none, we will move forward to item 6A, a resolution approving a memorandum of understanding between the Florida State Lodge Fraternal Order of Police Incorporated and the City of Temple Terrace regarding the proposed 2019 wage increase. Police Chief Ken Albano will explain. Chief.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of City Council. Ken Albano, your police chief. Before you tonight, for your consideration and discussion, is a memorandum of understanding, as you stated, Madam Mayor, that will allow council to enter into an agreement with the FOP so that they can, as previously discussed by this council, be afforded the same increases for salary in fiscal year 2019 as all other general employees. Because of the contractual situation, an MOU is required, so I know later in your agenda you're going to be actually approving the budget. This just allows and provides for mechanisms that you can also make this increase available to your contractual employees. of the police department.
Thank you, Chief. I'd ask if there were members of the public wishing to address council on this item. Seeing none, I would ask council, are there any questions? Seeing no questions, if acceptable, would entertain a motion approving a memorandum of understanding between the Florida State Lodge Fraternal Order of Police, Incorporated, and the City of Temple Terrace regarding the proposed 2019 wage increase. Is there a motion?
So moved.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the nay sign. Thank you. Motion carries, and thank you for your efforts, Chief. Next, a resolution approving the renewal of Superion Software Maintenance Agreement. IT Director Bob Keel will explain. Mr. Keel.
Good evening, Council and Mayor. What we are essentially looking at here is a renewal of annual maintenance agreements between the city and Horizon Government Cloud Solutions, also known as Superion. This is a continuation of technical support and online training, as well as the regular upgrades and fixes to application software that is used in the cloud for such items as utility billing, occupational licenses, payroll, personnel, fixed assets, etc. We are looking at, for fiscal year 18-19, $110,580 for all services currently used by the city. As you see, year 2, that number does go up somewhat significantly to $122,616 annually, and from there out, it's an additional, we have negotiated 4% increases after that for a period of 60 months. The difference I may add here is that we are going to be experiencing some credits on some applications that weren't fully implemented in this fiscal year, and they're giving us credits for the 18-19 year. That's why the number is so much lower than 122. We've also added 2 significant report packages, one for budgeting and CAFR, and another for reporting, general reporting to create cosmetic reports and informational dashboards for the rest of the applications.
Thank you, Mr. Keel. Are there members of the public wishing to address council on this item? Seeing none, I would ask if there are any questions from council. Councilman Ross.
I do have a question, Mr. Keel. In the summary, this discussion part, it talks about subsequent years' maintenance cost will increase by $7,320 plus 4% per annum.
Yes.
That's a lot of increase, 4%. And then what's the $7,300 in addition to the 4% increase?
The $7,300 is because in 18-19, we'll be receiving no charges for the 2 reporting packages that we just purchased, because that first year is given to us inclusive of maintenance. But the 2 additional packages and the recent addition of occupational licenses online account for that $7,300 and some odd dollars increase.
So the 4% increase is what's baked in, but the $7,300 is because we're asking for additional products.
We have the additional products now, but this 18-19 fiscal year, those are given to us the first year inclusive
Okay.
for
Okay.
maintenance costs.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions, council?
Yeah, I have a question. Now
Councilman
I'm
Pagorlak.
confused. Let's just talk raw numbers, not what it's covering, okay, because I'm sure you got that right. So 18-19 is 110.5 roughly, correct?
Yes.
So 19-20 is going to be 117.8, round numbers.
Actually, that will be year 2, that will be 122,616.
4% also.
Oh,
That includes
so it's 117, it's 117.8 plus 4%.
Correct.
Okay. And the 7,000 is covering what it would have been, but for the credits this year.
Correct, and the inclusion of the first year's
So
maintenance.
really, all things being equal, the only thing we're really incurring is the 4%.
Essentially, yes. We're
Okay.
getting a break this
And that
coming
4%
fiscal year.
is every year forever?
No, to the end of this 60-month agreement.
Okay.
And at that point, we can renegotiate with them again.
And what, what are we supposed to be, what's the 4% supposed to cover? Is it just increased cost or?
It's the technical maintenance or technical support, maintenance and updates to the programs, continued improvements to the programs, and the assistance that we get from Superion for the support of the software.
Is that a norm in the industry? Because it does seem to be.
Actually, 4% is pretty reasonable. In the past, we've seen increases, not from necessarily Superion, but other software companies. The increases can vary anywhere between 3% per year up to 7 to 8% per year.
Really? Wow. I'm in the wrong business. Okay.
Any additional questions, council? If acceptable, would entertain a motion approving the renewal of Superion Software Maintenance Agreement. Is there a motion?
So moved.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the nay sign. Motion carries. Item 6C, a resolution authorizing the purchase of a 2019 Pierce fire engine. Fire Chief Ian Kemp will explain. Chief.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor, Council, City Manager. In accordance with the city's current fleet maintenance procedures, as well as the city's and the fire department's vehicle replacement program, the fire department is recommending an authorization to purchase a fire engine from 10-8 Fire Equipment with accordance with the sheriff's bid. Also, vehicle education equipment from Municipal Emergency Services through two other competitive quotes. Also, a direct source capture diesel exhaust system that would be placed on the engines, what all of our other engines currently have. That's from Ward No Smoke, who is a sole source vendor. And also appropriate radios, antennas, and headsets, which will be purchased through CI through a sole source vendor.
I would ask if there are members of the public who would like to address council on this item. Seeing none, council questions. Councilman Pagorlik, and then we'll go to Councilman Ross.
Two quick questions. One is, what is this replacing, if anything?
It is. It's replacing a current engine that's 11 years old. It was supposed to be, this particular engine was supposed to be replaced last year. It was pushed back 1 year, if you may recall. And then, the current engine it's replacing will be going into the reserve portion of our fleet for 5 more years.
Okay.
And then after that, and the one that the reserve truck that it's replacing will sold in accordance with the city procedures.
Okay, you've answered my second question. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Councilman Ross.
I have a question, Chief. I mean, I understand fire trucks are expensive, $700,000 is a lot of money. What kind of fire truck costs $750,000 and then we have to spend $9,000 for a no-smoke exhaust before we ever use it? How come it doesn't come with that already?
Well, we're not only spending that, I think we're spending, about $51,000 for equipment for that fire truck. It comes bare boned. Doesn't
Well,
come with any-
that makes sense to me, I get
Yeah.
that, but I'm just wondering, I mean, I just bought a pickup truck, it came with the no-smoke thing on it already, and I didn't spend $700,000 on it, why don't they come with that?
Well, I probably could have gotten away from having this on this agenda if I would have just had 10-8 put it on, but it would have cost me about another $2,000. So what we decided to do is have the vendor itself come to our location, and they'll install it, and it saves us about $2,000. What most places have done in the past is if you come by one of our fire stations, what we used to have is a smoke capture system that you would place on the exhaust system, and it's at both stations, and that kind of was the norm about 20, 30 years ago. What's happened over the years is those things tend to break constantly, and unfortunately, carcinogens are a real killer of firefighters in the service these days, probably the biggest killer. So what we found is even when those things are functioning at their capacity, this particular unit is applied, and even when we're on scene or car accidents for whatever, we're still sucking all the carcinogen smoke, and so this takes it from that aspect. So now we don't even have to worry about it on scene, and we don't have to have the continuous problems of fixing this. We've had the one on the engine now it's coming up on 8 or 9 years, and it hasn't been serviced, and it really only has to be serviced about once every 10 years. So I value your question. I understand what you're saying, but unfortunately, manufacturers leave it up to each agency to figure out what they're going to do with the smoke and trying to reduce the gases. And some use fans. There's a big, huge exhaust fans in their stations. Some use the exhaust capture where they attach it to and then what we've decided about 7 or 8 years ago was to go in with this system, which is a system that's really caught on nationwide, and a lot of local, I think Clearwater uses it, about 5 or 6 over in Pinellas County. Tampa started using it. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Chief. Are there any other questions? If acceptable, would it,
I just have
Yes,
a
ma'am.
comment. I appreciate the fact that you broke it out so that we could see that you had to go to the 2 other vendors rather than just lumping it
Well,
together.
I thought that would be the way to do it, so that would
Thank
help
you.
out with any questions.
Thank
Yes, ma'am. I'll do that in the future as well.
if acceptable, would entertain a motion approving the purchase of a 2019 Pierce fire engine?
Move to approve?
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, please signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the nay sign. And motion carries. Just a brief moment of privilege. Chief, I believe council and all of our citizens would love an update on, I believe, two of our men, Joe Cable and Casey Hanna, are traveling back, but 2 more are deployed. Can you give just a brief update on what our team's been involved in?
Well, I will. They're tired. I talked to the 2 that are coming back, and we got a call about 2 days ago from FEMA, who, through the state, through the county, reached out to me and said, we'd like to keep you guys for another week. I spoke with Hillsborough County and Pasco chiefs, and they, instead of giving their guys an option, they said, no, we're gonna bring them back. Both Pasco and Hillsborough were nice enough to use their vehicles. We met at Pasco Fire Station this morning, early this morning, and we're heading up, and we're gonna cross over. So, but they've done everything from transport patients on an 8-hour round trip from one end of North Carolina to another. Some serious, not so much as serious. They've been involved in some of the water rescues that have occurred. To use a quote, they thought it was going to be bad, but it's certainly above the expectations that they thought it was going to be. So I know they're very tired. They want to see their family, but what they also wanted to let me know is that it was an honor to go, and they know that when we have hurricanes, we get a lot of help from agencies outside of Florida, and they felt they were eager to go, and I want to applaud the city manager for allowing us to take that. We've been able to do this with very minimal initial cost. We anticipate most, if not all, of the cost will be reimbursed by FEMA, probably all. But I know it was a decision that the city manager had to think of over, and I appreciate his support. But our guys continue to do a great job, and I appreciate all your support. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Chief. Thank you, Mr. Stevenson, and please convey to our men who have been deployed, as well as the men and women who are standing in the gap, that we're very appreciative.
I want one other thing. I just want to thank the citizens. I can't tell you how many letters and emails and phone calls I've received, and my guys have received, and social media. The support we've received is immeasurable. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Next, a public hearing and second reading of Ordinance 1461, adopting the 2018-2019 tax levy. The public hearing is now open. City Manager Stevenson will explain.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Item 6D is the second of 2 public hearings on the property tax millage levy in order to solicit public comments for the proposed tax millage levy for 2018-2019 fiscal year prior to the adoption of the annual budget for 2018-19. The agenda item has been noticed and structured to provide council with the opportunity to comply with both city charter and Florida's statutory requirements on the budget and the tax levy. City council is required to convene this public hearing on the proposed property tax levy and make the announcement at the public hearing prior to formally consideration of the attached resolution. The recommended property tax levy for fiscal year 2018-2019 is 6.555 per $1,000 of assessed value, which is 0.4 of 1 mil decrease from the current fiscal year. The recommended property tax millage rate of 6.555 is .2414 mils, or 3.82% higher than a rollback rate of 6.3136. Council should take action to adopt Ordinance 1461 approving the ad valorem tax rate for fiscal year 2018-19 beginning October 1 of 2018 and ending September 30th, 2019.
Are there members of the public wishing to address council on Ordinance 1461? Council, are there questions? Seeing none, the public hearing is now closed. I'd ask the clerk to please read the title of Ordinance 1461.
An ordinance of the City of Temple Terrace, Florida, adopting a millage rate of 6.555 mils for fiscal year 2018-2019. Said millage rate being .2414 mils, or 3.82%, more than the rollback rate of 6.3136 mils, providing a severability clause and providing an effective date.
Would entertain a motion to adopt Ordinance 1461.
Move to approve ordinance 1461.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay sign. Thank you. Motion carries. Item 6E, a public hearing and second reading of Ordinance 1464, adopting the 2018-2019 annual budget. The public hearing is now open. City Clerk Stevenson will explain. Or City Manager, excuse me. I'm demoting him.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In accordance with applicable provisions of Florida statute and our city code, this is the second of two public hearings being provided to solicit public comment on the annual budget for the upcoming 2018-2019 fiscal year. Notification of the previous first hearing had been provided to all property owners in the truth and millage. Notices provided by the property appraiser in mid-August. Notification of the second and final hearing had been advertised pursuant to Florida statute requirements. The recommended budget is presented to City Council in a series of budget workshops to review and solicit adjustments to the allocations within the budget documents. The total city fiscal year 2018-2019 budget amounts to $57,954,431. Budget summary document is attached, illustrating the total budget for the upcoming year. Excuse me. If I can just provide council with the highlights of this proposed budget, reflects the following. Reflects a 0.4 mil decrease in the ad valorem tax rate to 6.555 mils from the current year of 6.955. There is a 0 increase in all water and sewer user fees. There is a 0% increase in all commercial sanitation rates. There's a 0% increase in single-family residential sanitation rates. The proposed 2018-19 budget also provides for the following capital improvements, consisting of $2,223,900 in general fund capital programs. Provides for $1,912,868 in community investment tax fund expenditures to replace public safety vehicles, equipment, public works vehicles and equipment, and refurbish public facilities and park facilities. Budget also includes $6,216,000 in utility system improvements and vehicle replacement fees, or vehicle replacements, sorry. Also includes a $310,000 expenditure in a sanitation, purchase of a sanitation vehicle and equipment for the sanitation fund. Provides for $1,402,000 in street and sidewalk, bicycle trail, and drainage improvements for our city. After City Council solicits public comment on the proposed annual budget, City Council should take action to approve the attached Ordinance 1464, adopting the proposed 2018-2019 fiscal year budget.
Thank you,
Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. Are there members of the public wishing to address council on Ordinance 1464? Seeing none, council, are there any questions? Seeing no questions, the public hearing is now closed. If the clerk would please read title Ordinance 1464.
An ordinance of the City of Temple Terrace, Florida, adopting the final operating budget for fiscal year beginning October 1, 2018, and ended September 30th, 2019, and the capital improvement budget, given notice of the public hearings thereon, authorizing the city manager to issue such instructions as are necessary to achieve and accomplish the service programs, authorizing the city manager or the finance director to transfer monies among the departments and programs within any fund, authorizing the city manager or the finance director upon receipt of a donation or grant to appropriate said funds in the expenditure line item of the program as required by the donor grantor, providing a severability clause, effective date, and repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith.
Would entertain a motion to adopt Ordinance 1464.
Move to approve ordinance 1464.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay sign. Thank you. Motion carries unanimously. Next, a resolution approving the termination of the Master Developers Agreement. City Manager Stevenson will explain.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Provide just a little basis and a little history of how we got to where we're at right now. This resolution is, we have discussed the problems that the Master Development Agreement that we inherited from the last deal from some years ago, back in 2009, 2010, has been somewhat problematic in trying to get clear title with the two contracts that we have under contract right now for the redevelopment area. One of the things that we have been in discussion with between our attorney and their attorneys is basically considering terminating that agreement and relying on development agreements and site plan reviews that eventually have to come back to council anyway. The Master Development Agreement was inherited by the city when we settled with Vlass, and Vlass went away. And essentially, we're the master developer anyway. So we have this 116-page document with ourself that really is contrary and contradictive to what we're trying to do out at the redevelopment right now. For instance, it outlines phases, it outlines how much square footage is supposed to be built in phase one. We're not following any of those criteria within the Master Development Agreement now. The Master Development Agreement is really a document and an article that has now become very problematic to us getting to the closing table and getting clear title to our property out there. So this recommendation is basically terminates that agreement. We will, again, rely on development agreements coming back from these developers that have two parcels under contract right now. I don't know, we have gone back through it page by page and trying to figure out if there is anything in there that we should salvage. And quite honestly, I can't find anything that we should salvage. It talks about the developer building a community use center. If you remember correctly, we were going to build a community building out there. It has no bearing on what we're doing out there now. And again, the document has become more problematic than it has become helpful. So this resolution basically absolves that development agreement that we inherited from last. And my suggestion is that we do that so that we can move forward. It would certainly be a step in the right direction with the two developers that we're currently working with. We have tentatively scheduled for 3 more potential developments to come back to us, come back to the CRA, the second meeting in October. And I expect this Master Development Agreement to be a problem then. So I think the sooner we can get rid of it, sooner we can move forward with the 2 that we have in the works right now. So my recommendation to council would be to terminate that Master Development Agreement and again rely on site plans and development agreements that we're currently working on with the 2 contracts that we have underway right now.
Are there members of the public wishing to
evening,
comment
Mayor.
to council on this item? Seeing none, council, are there any questions? Councilman Ross.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have a quick question. I understand the need to do this, Charles. Is this going to impact the closing date for the 2 contracts we have, or will this just help facilitate future contracts
This is going to facilitate us getting to the closing table much quicker.
on the 2 that we have pending?
Yes, we have had conversations with Paragon, obviously, you guys are well aware that we've had some issues with title on Paragon. This will certainly answer a lot of their questions. Richmond has brought up some of the same questions in our conversation with them and their attorneys about title. I do think this will facilitate things dramatically.
Any other questions? If acceptable, would entertain a motion approving the termination of the master developers agreement.
Move to approve the terminating the Master's Development Agreement dated June 30th, 2009, the Memorandum of Master's Development Agreement dated July 1st, 2009, the First Amendment to the Master's Development Agreement dated November 30th, 2009, the Second Amendment to the Master's Development Agreement dated May 18th, 2010, and the amendment to the Memorandum of Master's Development Agreement dated June 30th, 2010.
Thank you, Councilman Pagorlik. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the nay sign. Thank you. Motion carries unanimously. Council members, are there any carryover items from our previous meeting? Seeing none, is there new business to come before council? Councilman Ross.
Yes, ma'am. I'd like to request an agenda item at a future meeting where we can have some discussion about changing the rules to allow our attorney to negotiate settlements to our outstanding code liens. We've had some discussion about acquiring a contract attorney to do this. We've got a report from her after doing some exploration into that. I'd like us to have a discussion about that and entertain the possibility of empowering her to do this with the final negotiated amount coming before the council for approval. But I think that we need to probably have an agenda item for that because I think the public and others would want to chime in on that.
Very good. Would you like to make a motion to have that on a future agenda, Mr. Ross?
Sure, I would make a motion that we have an agenda item on a future meeting as soon as possible to discuss a rule change that would empower the city attorney to negotiate lien settlements.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion around that? Councilman Shalur.
Madam Mayor, I feel like we're putting the cart before the horse on this because we've asked our staff and administration to do research on getting an independent attorney involved and find out what that entails. Once we get that information back, then we could look at different options. I think we should get that information back first, which we asked for over a month ago. I haven't gotten anything. And once we get that back, then I want to find out what the ramifications of that are, because obviously the city attorney's been understaffed and we had to have a substantial increase in our budget to accommodate her assistant in her position as well. So I think we need to maybe have a workshop to discuss it further, and then we could look at options. But I'm not a big fan of putting something on an agenda item to discuss when we haven't even workshopped it to any degree. And I know that the feelings on this particular item have been divided, and we have an election coming in 2 months, and that would, possibly tie the hands of newcomers, maybe, maybe not, depending who they are. So I would suggest that we have a workshop and something of this nature, important decisions like this may be considered once the new body is brought on board, because that's the folks that will be dealing with it. It could always be turned around, obviously, if there's a change of mind, but we need to know more about it before we just put something on an agenda and move forward, because I watched the code board meeting and it was boom, 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 let's go to the City of Tampa attorney. And I didn't expect that. The city manager made a presentation, Mr. Ross spoke, and a couple of the board members went back and forth. They weren't going to do it, they were going to do it, they weren't going to do it. 3 members were absent. It just happened to be 2 of them were adamantly opposed to what was happening. We've always have spoken to be transparent and give everybody a voice and an opportunity, whether you're on the prevailing side or the failing side. And to bring something up and vote on it when folks are absent isn't fair when there's divided opposition to that. So we always have all stood strong to say, let's be transparent and give everybody an opportunity, and then let the chips fall where they fall, but make sure everybody's present. And I don't think that was done at that code board meeting. That's water under the bridge. We moved on with that. But I think this is something that deserves more discussion and more workshop before a decision's made. If the majority of the council wants to do it, so be it, and I'll vote for it. And in 2 months, I'll bring it back up for discussion if that's the way we want to roll. But just wanted to be transparent with where I stand. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Shalura. Councilman Boss, and then we'll go to Councilman Donohue.
I was just going to say, I like the first meeting in December as putting it on for the agenda item.
Okay.
Works for me. We can have a workshop before if necessary, but the first meeting in December works.
Works for me, too.
Thank you, Councilman
I
Boss.
don't,
Councilman,
having a workshop?
Councilman Donohue.
Yeah, well, I have a question for Mr. Ross. If I understand it right, you just want to talk about you want to compare, you want to talk about this item in general. Is it better to have our city attorney or an outsider do this? And if that wasn't your motion, I would ask, would you be interested in having that as either a workshop discussion or a agenda item that we could compare the two?
I don't have any opposition to doing this in the form of a workshop first, if that's the way we want to start. I just want to get a start on it. I don't have any opposition to waiting until the new council's seated in November. I just want to get something going on this. We did get the staff report back, though. I don't know, I got it, I can.
Yeah, I got it.
But we did get it back, and that's, in fact, we got it back a month or two ago,
Immediately.
which is why I'm interested to get the discussion going. But I'm not opposed to it being in the form of a workshop. If that's more appropriate, that's fine. I just want something to, I don't want this to get forgotten and left behind. And so I guess I could amend the, well, okay, so I will draw the previous motion, and I make a motion that the council schedule a workshop to discuss this topic at the earliest convenience.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion? All in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Is there any other new business to come before council? Mr. Stevenson? Oh, I thought you were.
I just wanted to tell council, we'll have Pam send back out that analysis that she did. She did a pretty good in-depth job of doing that, so we'll make sure that everybody gets that. I know it was back in August. We sent it, August 1st is when she sent it out, so, and I do agree with Councilman Ross. It's probably one of those things we need to visit. Again, it's just, it's one of those processes that we may be able to look at and make better. So we'll have a workshop.
It's fine.
That's good.
Thank you. Any other new business to come before this body? Very good. Our city manager's report, Mr. Stevenson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A few things, and really just kind of some clarification stuff. This Thursday, we have an annexation community meeting over at Lightfoot. This Thursday at 6 p.m., is that right? Yes. 6 p.m. All the directors will be there. We've invited the folks in the neighborhood in the little enclave that we have on north of Fowler Avenue, between Gillette, basically, and 61st, in that area, out in order to try to entice them and really just kind of bring them up to speed with the benefits of coming into Temple Terrace, and community development has kind of put this together. If council would like to join, we don't need council there, but certainly you're invited to come out and meet and greet and also listen to what we have to say. This is really the start and the kickoff of us getting a little bit more aggressive with our annexation efforts. Really kind of culminates from Mr. Statz's petition to rezone the property, and we heard from some of those neighbors. And it is one of those little enclaves that we've always tried to straighten out. So I think it is a good start. We'll see what kind of feedback we get. I know the directors will be there to certainly help with answering questions for the neighborhood. So that is tomorrow at 6 p.m. September 25th, the Chamber of Commerce Candidate Forum is as all of you are aware, we're trying to rearrange just a little bit. The original intent of the chamber was to have a forum, if you would, that consisted of everyone that is on the ballot for whatever office they're on, including our city council candidates. We have been able to reset that date, if you would, so that our 4 candidates have an opportunity to better reach out to our residents in particular. We're trying to set that up. Finally got a date of October 11th to hold that meeting. I will reach out to the council, the Chamber of Commerce, and try to fold them into this meeting as well and kind of get that organized. That meeting will end up being at Lightfoot, again, from 7 to 9 p.m. We don't have anything in writing yet or not in writing, but we don't have anything formally agreed upon with the chamber. I just kind of found out about the date and kind of was able to do that late this afternoon. But we will be putting that together, and I think it'll be a lot better forum than having our city council forum mixed in with all the other ballot contenders, if you would. So,
May I ask a question?
yes, ma'am.
I want to make sure we don't lead people to think that the candidate forum has been canceled on the 25th.
No, we will
Because that's
reach out to
from
that.
Congress.
Yes,
you
and
know, all
the
the way
candidate forum
down.
on the 25th has not been canceled.
Okay, okay.
We're trying to pull, again, our just local election out of that forum so that we can concentrate a little bit more on just our residents attending a special forum with our 4 candidates for
Okay.
council, okay? We will do our best to make sure that people understand that forum is still continuing. Chamber is well aware that that forum is continuing, so. We'll let you know more about that as we get things planned and scheduled accordingly. Certainly recognize Joe Cable and Casey Hanna. I know they've done an excellent job up there. We appreciate all the work that certainly the fire department does. And I know that the area up there has been very appreciative of our involvement with the efforts that everyone's going through up there because of Hurricane Florence. And it is great to participate and be able to do that. I think that is certainly one of those things that when we need them, we can certainly call on these people and they'll be there for us. So I think it's a good effort that we're having to do up there. And I know that Casey and Joe have got to be real tired. It is very tiring working one of these incidences. So we certainly appreciate their efforts, and I know they volunteered. Certainly, I commend them for doing that. So, National Night Out, just to give everybody a heads up, we've got National Night Out October 2nd. Again, falls on our first meeting in October. Remind everybody, we are meeting at 5 o'clock, City Council meeting at 5 o'clock on October 2nd, and not 6 o'clock. National Night Out this year is at Greco. Because of the renovations that we have going on at the Family Rec Center, we've moved it to Greco. Again, we will try to make sure that we get an email blast out there and make sure that people don't go to the Family Rec Center and miss out on the event. Great event. We invite everybody to come out. Thank you for the MDA and this resolution. I think that will go a long way to getting us moving forward a lot quicker. And I appreciate everyone's interest in doing that. It's been rather stumbling block, quite honestly, for the last couple of months. So, last but not least, I want to thank council certainly for their help with the budget. The budget documents came together a lot quicker. I know that we approved some time ago about $45,000 worth of upgrades to our Superion software. It made it a lot easier. We appreciate the efforts of council to help us make it easier. It will get easier as we go along. We're starting to learn a lot more about it and getting a lot more training with it. Certainly our finance department worked very hard to get this thing together. They were very patient with me this year. We had a lot of discussions and a lot of long days. The department directors and certainly worked very hard to be patient with me again in all the cuts that we made. And I commend them for listening to me and working with me in order to get that done. I think we've got a good document. We're looking forward this year to getting a lot done. We've got some money to get some stuff done, and we're looking forward to getting some stuff done that's been long needed. So With that, I'll thank my staff for sure, certainly the Finance Department, my directors, for all their hard work and their patience with me. So I don't have anything else, and I'll be quiet. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. Is there any further business to come before this
Just
council?
one quick thing, I just want to say that you said your guys retired. I know that's an understatement. You don't, people, if you've never been through a disaster, if you've never worked a disaster, and I've worked two, the level of exhaustion that you bring home with you, tired doesn't cover it. So these guys are working hard. I saw pictures of them today, and they had that look. So we appreciate them. I know the people in South Carolina appreciate them, and they're our local heroes. And thank you.
Anyone else? This meeting stands adjourned. Thank you.